Welcome to the show. And for what you done. We got that info for you. Touchdown on that plane. And for anything. More than just a podcast for you.
Welcome to the 10-4 YouTube show. I'm your hostess with the mostest, Jamesetta Cleveland, and you asked for it. We gave it to you. Today, we're making history again, and our show is going to be strictly devoted to soccer. Yay! So joining me today are Curtis Blair, Jake Haddad, JT Dorsey, and Tucker Bone. They are going to be your panelists, and I'm going to be your facilitator. So, gentlemen, introduce yourselves. Let the audience know a little bit about you.
My name is Curtis Blair, and I'm the director of soccer for Baylor School. We are located in Chattanooga, Tennessee, which is right in between Nashville, Knoxville, and Atlanta. We're stuck right in the middle of that. I've also been part of the coaching school, ODP for numerous years, college coach, and clubs. So I'm really excited to be a part of the show.
My name's Jacob Haddad, and I grew up in the Franklin area playing soccer for BGA and Tennessee Soccer Club, and ended up going on to play for Center College Division III school in Central Kentucky.
I'm Tucker Bone. I went to the Air Force Academy with Ron Cleveland, famous Ron Cleveland. I graduated in 2019, and from there went to play professionally in the USL.
Awesome. I'm JT Dorsey. I run the JT Dorsey Foundation. Former professional player in the USL, similar to Tucker.
Awesome.
Worked for the State Association in Pennsylvania for Eastern Pennsylvania Youth Soccer Association. Also serve on the advocacy committee for the Black soccer coaches, and also a trainer for urban soccer for the U.S. Soccer Foundation. So glad to be here.
Oh, thank you guys for coming. So we will jump right in. We talked about this a little bit before. I grew up in Europe, and soccer was very different in Europe than what I've experienced since I've come back to the United States. So this is the first question. In your experience, how is soccer different in the U.S. than in the rest of the world?
I mean, I think I would say the difference is it's in the rest of the world, it's probably similar to our basketball experience where a lot of kids play. It's pretty easy to access. And it's really a game for kids, no matter what socioeconomic status they are. So I would say kind of that's maybe one of the big things that I see in my work that makes it different here than it does in the rest of the world.
I'd agree with that statement. I think in the rest of the world, they grow up with a soccer ball, and they come out of the womb with a soccer ball. Here, it's basketball, football, all the other sports. Lacrosse is, getting big, and then you put soccer on that list. So I think the difference here is, kids just don't grow up with it, as compared to other countries where they're born into it. Usually they have a small professional community that they support wherever they live, especially in the European nations. And, they just fall in love with their community club, whether it's good or bad, they're going to follow them until they die. So I think that's a little bit of difference. I think it's a little bit like college football for a lot of our down here in the South, where people are following in Tennessee or Alabama or Auburn. I think it's that same kind of mentality is they find their niche and their team that they're going to follow, and they're going to do whatever they want to make sure that they're supporting their group.
Yeah, I would agree with both of those testaments there. Essentially stemming from just a cultural thing, right? A lot of parents want to do what's readily available for their kids, and for us in the States, usually that's basketball than football. It's just it's more readily available. There's more teams, so there's more of that cultural aspect. And then, like JT mentioned, the socioeconomical status of just different places around the world. Soccer can always be played as long as you have a field and a ball. And a lot of times, some of these poorer countries just have some makeshift ball. They don't even have a real soccer ball. and they still have a blast at it. It's it's the world sport is what a lot of people call it, and I think that's kind of what adds to the popularity level. And I'm sure, as we'll get into later, eventually the skill level and whatnot.
Yeah, I would agree also. And I think one thing that I experienced was through high school was a lot of coaches and athletic directors pushing multi-sport athletes, and just the competition for time between basketball, football, soccer, track. There's just so many things high school players can play now. And kind of like these guys mentioned, there's probably not as much competition in other countries that mainly focus on soccer.
I'm the novice here, and I'm going to ask because maybe this is just me, but when I lived in Europe, soccer was like this huge, boisterous, loud. They were, it was Europe. They were drinking. There was food. There was cat calls. I mean, it was just like this really in my opinion, rabid, really close to SEC football atmosphere in soccer. And I have not observed that atmosphere in the games that I've been to in the United States or soccer. I look around and I feel weird because, in my opinion, and this is just me, people here are dignified. And I just wonder, why are we so dignified? Like, people are not rabid, they are not yelling, they're not cheering the way that you see in Europe and in other countries. And y'all can just tell me I'm alone on my island, but I want to ask, since I have 4 different people, why is it different? Why is that different? None of you spoke to the atmosphere, which is really interesting to me. But maybe you don't notice, but why is it different?
I think it all comes back to the community. Especially overseas, is wherever you live, that is your hometown club, and you're going to follow them. You're going to bleed whatever color that they are, whether they're blue, red, orange, doesn't matter. You're going to follow them for away games, home games. You're going to be really excited. Your week will define how they do on Saturday or Sunday. The rest of your week on Monday, whether they get the result, whether they don't get the result. I think that atmosphere is just something that they grew up in. But it's all tied to me. It's all tied to be part of the community, to be something bigger than you are. And overseas, that's it. They are completely tied in from when they were born to that community. And usually they have their parents, grandparents that are always followed that same club, and they're just tied into it. They don't have a choice. They're following their local community soccer club.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's starting to change a little bit too. Just even at some of the MLS games and some of the USL games, they're creating, these fan bases where, it's a good time to go there, and there's people with big old drums, and there's clubs and bars that support some of the teams and stuff before the games and after the games. So I think that atmosphere is starting to change. Just as we grow as a country in the sport, it's starting to change a little bit. But, in Europe, there's a long time stretch of, that type of, following and behavior.
Yeah. JT and Curtis are absolutely right. It's just stemming from that history, that long history that's been there with these clubs. Here in the States, we've had a history of essentially building like our infrastructure and like our system, right? We've had our very first professional league here in the States have they've fallen apart in some essences. The MLS, I'm pretty sure, was called a few different things before it was even called the MLS. And so we're struggling to sort of just build that infrastructure where it's been in place in some of these foreign countries for such a long period of time. And these hometown teams like Curtis was talking about, they've been around for hundreds of years almost, right? In some cases it has been even longer than 100 years, and they've never gone anywhere. The quality of that team may have changed over the years, and they will jump up and down through the leagues through that structure that they've built over there. Whereas for us, if a team isn't maybe doing so well, maybe they just fall apart completely. Or if they're doing really well, they may get a bid into the MLS, but that system is something and that infrastructure is something we're still trying to develop here in the States. So I think it just all comes back to the history.
That's good to know. Jacob, before I hop to the next question, do you want to chime in? You don't have to, but I'm just asking. I don't want to
Oh,
overlook you.
I would just say that I've seen a little bit of that growth. I guess that community aspect, just going to Nashville SC games, you start to see that sort of a thing growing, but it's not at the level that you would see in Europe, for example. But
So I have you guys are giving me questions for the next show, but like there's some terms, MLS, USL. Some of my parents that are new may not know what those terms mean, so we'll have to clarify that on future shows. But the next question. So you guys talked about soccer being different and not being the normal sports in the United States. So why did each of you pursue soccer instead of a traditional American sport?
I played when I was 6 years old, and really I got started because I went and watched my cousin's team play. And then we went back home, and my parents said, "Are you interested?" I said, "Yes." I thought it was fun. I thought the kids enjoyed themselves. It looked like it was a good time. And being so young, I just bought in. And then once I started to play, I realized, man, it's such a team-oriented game, and I loved it. But also got into the point where I played basketball in high school as well, and then to the point, like, I know it's probably going to come up where we had to make a decision, and I decided to give 100% to soccer. But I played basketball and soccer in high school, and then my sophomore year I ended up quitting basketball because if you really want to be you know um, dedicated to one, I felt like that I had to. And I also had coaches that made me pick, to a point where, listen, you got to do one or the other. And I chose soccer because, like I said, I thought it was a game that was a fun. I thought it was fun. I thought it was enjoyable to play. I love the competitiveness. I love the part of that. It's not just about me. It's about 10 other people included, that we get to try to do something and accomplish something when we get to play our games and compete and training as well.
So for you, the key to make you choose soccer was the actual team, and saying from a practical perspective, I have to devote more time to it if I'm going to get better.
Yes.
All
There's only
right.
24 hours in a day, and you have to try to figure out what you're going to do with those 24 hours. And with my size and my athletic ability, I knew basketball wasn't going to be it. So I had to try to figure out, which one is probably going to give me the best opportunity to play. But it was also very easy for me because my love was for soccer. I mean, growing up, I loved it. Like I said, basketball, my basketball coach came to me and said, you got to choose one or the other, because I was missing some basketball practices due to going to the training for soccer. And at the end of the day, that was an easy choice for me. I went with my passion and my first love. But I know a lot of kids are in that same boat, that they've got to make a choice eventually. But mine, I didn't have to make that choice till I was a sophomore, which was nice.
So I'm going to point out to parents who are listening, we talk about being realistic with what your child is going to do if you're thinking of playing at the next level. And out the gate, we have a high school soccer coach who is saying, I had to look and say, what was the thing? Am I a basketball player or am I a soccer player? Parents, it's okay to say, my kid is not a football player. He's not a wrestler. He's not a soccer player. It's okay to say, I won't, give up isn't the right word, but we're not going to try to be super competitive in sport B, because maybe in sport A, that's not our skill set. Our body type isn't suitable for that. We're not going to be 6'6", 250. Or we may say that it's not my child's first love. So as we get the additional answers, parents that are listening, I want you to open your mind, because we talk about this all the time. Be realistic with what your child wants to do based on genetics. Genetics do matter when you're thinking of going to play in college or beyond. So just wanted to point that out to our parents who are listening. Jump right in, next person.
I mean, I would say that I grew up in a community where it was kind of cool to be a multi-sport athlete. It was like basically like, how many sports can you play? right? So, you know, there was a good kind of camaraderie between like our basketball coach and our soccer coach and our track coach. I will say our football coach was not ecstatic about me not playing football because they happened during the same season. But I would still, like, a lot of my friends were on the football team in high school, and I would go to some of the practices and catch a few passes or play D-back and stuff like that. And then, you know, the coach is always like, "You sure you don't want to give up that game and come over and play football?" But I think for me, you know, it was as I got better, again, like we talked earlier, it cost more. And I was fortunate enough to have, you know, my friend and his dad at the time kind of support me through that. You know, we were going out of town, you know, my mom was a single mom and, you know, she couldn't afford, you know, the hotels and all that other stuff, but they would make sure I got to practice and got to games and the tournaments. And then kind of at the end, you know, I made a decision, you know, like Curtis was saying was, you know, I really looked at like what letters were coming in for basketball and which letters were coming in for soccer. And like, they were very different. You know, so for soccer, I was, you know, being asked to, you know, when my mom said, "Hey, if you want to go to college and do this, you're going to have to figure out how to pay for it." You know, it was pretty clear that, you know, when those letters were coming in to be able to have a scholarship and be able to play soccer, it was kind of the clear choice. And I just said, you know, maybe I'll just be a playground legend in basketball. And then, you know, I have to take this resource and use it to the best so I can promote what we can give back to my family. So that's kind of how I ended up choosing it. You know, I still was kind of cool. Got some respect from the guys in the neighborhood. Like, "Hey man, you still playing that soccer? You still playing soccer?" And like, how you do all that running, man? That's a lot of running, you know, like, but you know, it, and I also learned that it did help me in other sports. So, you know, but it kind of came down to, you know, what the end result was going to be for me and how that could change my family.
Got it.
Yeah. No, those are some good points. I would say I had a sort of similar path where I grew up on the West Coast, and I was playing soccer and lacrosse from a young age. You know, I tried doing the whole basketball thing, but wasn't that good. So I don't think it was for me. And I tried football for a year right before high school, and same sort of thing. It just really wasn't for me. You know, I was quick, but I wasn't big, and I just didn't have some of those things that were gonna help me excel. And kind of like JT was saying, I tended to gravitate towards liking soccer more just because as I got better at it, it seemed to just become more fun. And just those relationships that I had built from such a young age, you know, I valued those for sure. So once it came time for the whole recruiting process, you know, for soccer, I was going to travel tournaments, you know, getting emails, getting letters from different schools, and I started to focus more on soccer because that's what I was, I guess, better at. It's what I excelled more at. And for lacrosse, I had gone to a couple of travel tournaments here and there, but nothing ever came in. And I remember my high school coach telling me, you know, if I really wanted to, I could probably go play lacrosse at like a D3 or D2 school. But, you know, I'd have to start emailing around and start finding, you know, schools that may be interested. Whereas, you know, soccer, I was going to these tournaments and coaches were writing me. And it was a much more easy process, just obviously being able to respond in a quick email to them, you know, "Hey, I'm interested. You know, would you like to come on a visit?" And so, you know, after visiting a few schools at the D1 level, it was pretty clear. It was like, okay, I'm definitely going to do soccer. Now, which school is going to give me the best opportunity, you know, to kind of set myself up, you know, after a degree and stuff like that. And ultimately, what led me committing to the Air Force Academy and going there was just the opportunity they offered. But yeah, in all, you know, it was just sort of chasing what I was best at, kind of realizing that. My parents never forced me. So, you have to do soccer. You can't go and do this or that, right? But it was mainly I just kind of pushed myself to be better at it, and so that's what kind of drove me towards just pursuing soccer.
Yeah, I think I had a pretty similar experience as well. Kind of grew up in middle school playing mainly football, basketball, track, soccer, just for school, and then actually I kind of got started in club soccer because my older brother played, and so I was always going to his games on weekends and watching him play. And I realized that we were separated just enough years to where if I could get good enough at soccer to play up as an eighth grader, that would be the only way I could ever play with my older brother. So I started to play travel like late sixth grade, early seventh grade, and was kind of behind the eight ball, I felt, because most of these kids have been playing for a long time, and slowly, trying to go to travel soccer after football practice or travel after basketball practice. Eventually, I think it was sophomore year of high school for me as well, where finally all the other sports kind of just had to fade out, and I, it started to become that sport where I developed a knack for it. I felt like it was my best opportunity to play after high school, and but I guess it was driven by just wanting to play with my older brother.
And that landed you in college.
It did.
So I want to take a moment to point out parents. We talked earlier about being realistic about athletic abilities, but you've heard some gentlemen say, go where you're wanted. We talk to you guys all about that all the time on the show. Life, if you're looking for free college or partially discounted college, going where you're wanted is a big deal. And one of the key ways that you know that you're wanted is when coaches begin to contact you. So just know that it's the same in other sports. If they want you, then find a way to contact you and they let you know.